Now recording.
Hey, excellent. Hello, podcasters, and welcome to another episode of the Deep Time Podcast. In today's episode, it's Megaraptora 2, Evolutionary Boogaloo. It's because we had a new paper on Megaraptors on more than one vertebra. Never happens. But, yeah.
Don't cry.
I'm trying not to. I'm trying to hold it together. For this episode, I'm joined by Armin, obviously.
Hello.
As it's the season of the year where everything becomes crazy, it's just going to be the two of us for this episode. And yeah, so we'll just get right into it. For those of you who don't know, a new Megaraptoran paper dropped rather unannounced on the internet. And yeah, it's been a long time coming. It's two specimens from Patagonia that were first described in a thesis in, I believe, 2004. And now they've finally been properly published. And just imagine how much time it must have taken to update the paper because of how much Megaraptorans have changed in the past 16 years. When they were first described, they were Megaraptor SP because that's literally the only proper Megaraptoran we had besides the Raptor. Now they are, of course, just Megaraptorid indeterminates because we have so many more Megaraptorans we realize actually, the subtle nuances differentiating the different groups aren't preserved in these bones. But there's strong evidence to suggest that this new taxon is in fact its own thing. It's known from two rather partial skeletons, but they're of the same size and they're from a formation that no other Megaraptorans are really known from. In fact, it's the oldest formation in South America to hold. To hold Megaraptorids. There are some Megaraptorans from the Romualdo, which we've already discussed, Brazil and all that were formerly identified as Megaraptosaurs, but these are the first proper big Megaraptorids that we have in South America. So very interesting in that regard. We'll get into later its proper implications for the group as a whole. So I'm going to start off by sharing a picture of a skeletal, rather, showing the remains we have. As you can see, we've got some overlap. That's the both specimens part, namely the femur and all that, and the tibia. I think that's tibia or fibula, one of the two. And then we've got some ribs. We've got manual unguals. We've got tail vertebrae. The skeletal is by Incinerox. You've probably, if you've ever looked up Megaraptoran skeletals, you've probably seen it. This one is slightly modified from his because his does not, as of yet, include obviously these two specimens and also Tratayenia. But I believe he will be updating here. So really nice. It's probably the best Megaraptoran skeletal I've seen. It's not probably. It's definitely the best Megaraptoran skeletal I've seen in a published paper. I think it's just very, very nice. Very well done. We've been getting a lot of nice Megaraptoran skeletals.
Yeah, actually, Patch made a new one for Australovenator, which was nice.
Yeah.
So things are looking up.
Yes. Yeah. I'll talk a little bit later about where sort of Megaraptoran might be headed, because the paper actually mentions quite a lot of as yet undescribed specimens, which are very nice. So there's, I believe, 3 new South American specimens in the works from different parts of South America, which will hopefully really help us on that front. So moving on to the details, obviously the bones are figured. For me, the most interesting figure is, of course, the one of the manual unguals. I believe you commented on that one as well, Armin.
I
posted in Podcast Image channel.
Yeah, it's quite a nice figure to most. It's nice to have them all side by side, kinda looking at them.
Yeah, kind of disappointed they're not to scale, because I think that would have been really interesting.
Oh yeah, that would have been. I mean, I can try doing that later, to be honest.
That would be cool, actually. I'd quite like to see that.
Yeah. Great, I'll do that after I finish my assignment.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, no, it's a lovely lineup of specimens as well. You've got top 2 are the new unguals. Then you've got the imposter among us, Gualicho, which the paper treats as a possible Megaraptoran, Originally published as Megaraptoran, its identity has since been called into question. It's very probably closely aligned with Deltadromeus, which is also very, very probably now a Noasaurid. We discussed that in our Chem formation. We did do that, didn't we? Our Chem
We did,
formation.
yeah, our Chem extravaganza.
Yeah, I might, if I'm feeling particularly tech savvy, I might try and drop it into the video here. Click here.
Oh, fancy.
Or this won't work, and I'll just look like an idiot, but hopefully it'll work. Then you've also got Fuyang Venator. My biggest gripe being that Fuyang Venator does not get nearly enough attention in this paper, with regards to phylogeny and all that. Then you've got Fukui Raptor. You can start to see the linguistic base. You've got Australopithecus, which is really crazy, actually, because that's just, it straightens out. Very bizarre.
Looks insane.
Yeah. And then you've got CF Australopithecus, which is slightly more curved, but even then only slightly. I think it's also, it's pretty much the same size, or slightly smaller, from the Umarala Formation of Australia as well. So there's the two Australian ones. You've also got a third Australian one, LRF 100 to 106, but that is really fragmentary. But that is the big boy that may or may not be synonymous with quote-unquote Raptor. Then you have Megaraptor, which are the largest ones by far. Absolutely massive ones, the traditional curved ones. And then you've got a couple of other ones, which I believe are because there's quite a lot. There's so many claws. The paper actually mentions after discussion of claws. The reason why we get so many Megaraptoran claws is that although they're partly hollow, for the most part they're actually just solid bone, which is why they preserve so much better than the rest of the animal. That's why you get a ton of disassociated Megaraptoran claws. Yeah, so that's it. It's pretty cool. And then they go into a few other charts. We've got the femur as well, and I love the femur because the femur, it can be compared directly with Australovenator, and I believe get up the image. There was actually a diagram of these femora. I'm just trying to post this here. I haven't had this one prepared, but I think it's worth it. Not posting it in general, posting it in podcast image channel. So on the left there, you have, on the left there, we have the new Megaraptor, indeterminate Megaraptorans. And D is Chelantosaurus. Haven't heard that name in a while. Another putative Megaraptoran. Possible Megaraptoran, uncertain. Then C is Deltadromeus, which is kind of nice to see compared. And then you have D and E, which are D is Fukui-Raptor and E is Australovenator. And you can notice that these are actually very slim compared to their height. Like because these are not to scale, they're scaled to the same height. Very thin, these more primitive ones. And then the new one is slightly in between those and like the larger morphs like Chelantosaurus, assuming Chelantosaurus is that. There's also an as yet unpublished Megaraptor femur, but we'll obviously get more into that when that one's published. But you do seem to get this interesting separation. Interestingly enough, as when doing estimates based on the femur width, you get wildly different mass estimates for the two, which I find between Australovenator and the new boy. Obviously, the new boy is much larger; it's about over 7 meters. But it comes in about a ton, and then Australovenator is a measly 320 kilograms, which is probably an underestimate because people have done GDI on other servers, and it's just that's a very lightly built animal. That's like lighter than Utahraptor. Quite unlikely, but yeah. So femora are another very nice point of comparison, and then you've obviously got your vertebrae, your ribs, all that. That's nice. And that's pretty much the main body plan notes of these two. So shall we move on, if you want, to the phylogeny and all that they calculated?
Yes. I'll grab the pics. Phylogeny is how did you put it? It's a mess.
It's a mess. Yeah.
I'm gonna put the picture right up, don't worry. Tyrannosaurid Megaraptorans.
I mean, in their defense, they do mention, there is a line in the paper where they mention that although we calculate them within the Tyrannosaur matrix, it's not it's not indicative of the fact that they are definitely tyrannosauroids. I think they mentioned they didn't plug this into a Carcharodontus one for completion's sake. I do have an issue, actually, and I'll get to this later with Fuyang Venator, why they've used this matrix, but go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, it's not overly. I mean, I support Coelurosaur Megaraptorans over Carcharodontosaurs personally, but seeing them this close with Tyrannosaurids is still a bit weird to see, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know the phylogeny better than I do. But
yeah, I mean, this is based on the paper on the Morris Raptor skull by everyone's favorite phylogeny guy, Andrew Akau.
Oh, you mean, they have claws, so clearly Dryptosaurus is a Megaraptoran.
Let's not go back there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Being hyperbolic, but...
Of course. Yeah, so, sorry to burst into kind of what we said was your segment, but the thing that pisses me off most is the fact that they do not include Fuyang Venator in this. Like, they've coded the new specimens, 944 and 958, but they have not coded Fuyang Venator. And Fuyang Venator has only been coded once in its description. And it is the taxon that nested Megaraptor and Coelurosauria, and that's not been tested since. This would have been a perfect opportunity to independently test whether or not Fuyang Venator is a Megaraptor, if Megaraptor is Coelurosaurs, if this affects the placement. But nope, it's not tested. So yeah, that's all I want to say.
Yeah, no, real missed opportunity. Yeah, I mean, not much I can say. It's a mess. We've gone through all of this before, so...
Yeah, and they do actually mention later on in the paper that they actually disagree with the phylogenetic results themselves. Because they don't think it's indicative because... Yeah, morphologically... Sorry, I'm jumping into your segments again.
No, feel free. I'm not nearly as prepared.
Morphologically, the new... So in the phylogeny, the new guy is found as more basal to the clade formed by the clade formed by Aroston and Nostroventor as a duo, and then Tapayenia Morris Raptor Megaraptor Orthoraptor. But morphologically, this just simply does not add up because morphologically, like we saw with the claws and all that, it seems transitional. It seems like a transitional form, and temporarily this will also line up. I'll let you handle the time and frame and all that. But yeah, they basically say we don't think the phylogenies are correct yet. And so they propose the alternative, which is what I'll let you handle.
Yeah, post. So here we go. Honestly, before we go into the detail, I just want to say that I really love figures like these. It's really well done. It's a really nice visual reference. I wish more papers would do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's basically like it shows how could they possibly evolve? When did what Megaraptorans show up and where in the world? So you can see it kind of implies origin in the more Australian region. As I said, Fuyang Venator is really missing.
Yeah.
So it seems to begin in Australia and then wander over to South America. So we have like referred Australia Venator from the Albion. We have Australia Venator from that's Turonian Coney.
The border. No, that's the border. Cenomanian Turonian.
Okay. Okay. And then we get all the Megaraptor, Megaraptor, Erostian, and like it says in the description, red is the Australian ones, and blue, purple are the South American ones.
Which are also larger in body size.
Yes.
Generally, we notice the discrete split.
So yeah, I mean, you want to talk about it? Or...
Yeah, I want to... There's something interesting in the paper, which now I'm going to deviate a little bit from the paper from, because this is sort of a fake Megaraptor 2 episode, sort of sequel, an update, because we also had a very interesting paper at the start of the year, which ties into this one quite nicely, which described new Megaraptor remains from the Winton Formation, which is the same formation as Australovenator. And these remains are larger than Australovenator by a little bit, so indicating a taxon around 7 meters in length. and also bear slightly more similarities to the specimens that have just been described. So these Australian remains from Winton Formation seem to resemble the ones that have just been described in this paper more closely than they do the sympatric, as in same environments and all that, Australovenator. Whether or not this is true is a bit uncertain. I had a gander at the review history of that paper that came out, I think it was in March or something. And there was a disagreement, Fernando Novas, who's pretty big in Megaraptor phylogeny and studies. He described Megaraptor, Orcaraptor, among others, and so he's obviously got an investment. He argued that actually there's not that much to distinguish them, and it could very well be either ontogenetic or individual variation. Ontogenetic would be very interesting to test because we have complete hind limbs of Australovenator, and I think osteohistological analysis, where we get thin sections of the bone, would be very interesting to do. Because if Australovenator is immature, that changes up the game quite a bit, because Australovenator is clearly the Australian morph. So I think we're missing a little data set there in terms of what is this larger Winton taxon. And we also have some indications that the Australian morphs got a bit larger from the Lightning Ridge one that I discussed earlier, the fragmentary Australian one. So I think, but even then, even if we don't clarify that, we do see that there is a transition in this narrow window, even in starting in Australia, and then that moves to South America into this larger body type that Megaraptorans were becoming. I will say I'm very curious as to where the Australian Megaraptorans went. Because they just seem, they have their most diversity then in the Cenomanian with Lightning Ridge, and then I think the ones further south, not so much at that point, but Lightning Ridge and Winton, and then they just disappear and we don't have any more Australian Megaraptorans. Even though in South America, Megaraptorans persisted through to the Maastrichtian. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of undescribed Megaraptorans. There's one from a formation that I forget, and which is very nice, the new Megaraptor SP, although if that's still Megaraptor SP, who knows. And then we've got one that was discovered earlier in the summer, actually. Do you remember there was the big news rounds of new Megaraptoran found in Patagonia?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so that one's at the very end of the Maastrichtian, and then there's also one that was discovered, I think, 2 years ago, that has mentioned this paper that's also in the Maastrichtian. And those are both, that new one from the Maastricht, no, not the new one, the one that was discovered 2 years ago from the Maastrichtian is actually quite complete as well. It's one of the most complete Megaraptorans. So I think we're getting a lot of clarity now, which is great to see in South American Megaraptorans. So now I think there's a gap that could be filled in the Australian Megaraptorans. I'm just very curious to see where they went next. Because unlike the hypothesis, there was like back when we didn't have that many Maastrichtian Megaraptorans, we thought, oh, they just didn't cope, or Abelisaurids or something. In Australia, we really don't have any other predators.
Yeah, I mean, what about in Australia?
Nothing. We just have all of the Allosaurids, all of that. They're all Megaraptorans now. There's no indication that any large predator, any predator above like 3 meters in length. I mean, crazy hypothesis time. So we've got Timimus, that may be a Tyrannosaur, a second independently evolved group of large Tyrannosaurs in Australia. But that's a garbage hypothesis, so we're never mentioning that again. But yeah, so where did the Megaraptorans go? But I think that might also just be an artifact of we don't have that many formations sampled after the Cenomanian Turonian. That's all when everything sort of dried up after the Inland Sea disappeared. But yeah, so I think that's still a gap in our knowledge, but this paper does fantastically to start resolving our gaps in South American Megaraptoran understanding. I think we're really getting a good picture.
We are slowly making progress.
Yeah, slowly but surely. There's also an interesting point made, but I don't necessarily agree with it, about how perhaps Megaraptors were more common in the south and central of like Argentina and South America, and then Abelisaurids are more common in the north. Not sure how good that is. I think there are some undescribed Megaraptorans from like the Adamantina formation where Picnonemosaurus is. But that's just we not undescribed, but very, very fragmentary. So
I was going to say we have plenty of Abelisaurs from Argentina, so I'm not Sure.
That too, yeah. I think the segregation there is a bit unclear. I think it means mostly in terms of Master Team, but I think they're we can't really segregate that much.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, very very interesting stuff. And we're getting closer to Megaraptorans finally being accepted as the best dinosaurs. In my unbiased opinion.
Totally unbiased, nothing to judge.
And yeah. Do you have anything you want to add?
Not really, to be honest. You're the Megaraptoran guy, so
Yeah, no, nothing else to add. I mean, that's it. We've still obviously got the mess that is Gualicho and Chinantosaurus, but that's just fine. We can live with that. And yeah, no, that's it. I'm looking forward to seeing the new South American ones be described someday, some year. And fingers crossed we start finding more stuff from the Winton to figure out what was going on there. That seems to be the transition. So that's all from us. We apologize for the radio silence last week, by the way, but as I'm sure you all know, there was another big, very talked about theropods doing the rounds last week on Discords and Twitter and all that, and we didn't feel it would be right. Like we didn't particularly want to comment on it, and it didn't feel right to comment on anything else. So we decided to take a break last week. We'll see when we upload next. Because obviously it's the Christmas season, but we'll be seeing you around sometime for sure.
we will always be on Paddy's stream, so
yeah, obviously. Yeah, and obviously only Among Us games with Rick, as always. But yeah, and as for the podcast, we'll see you guys in the next one, whenever that may be.
see ya.